Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Is it not on?
It's on now.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. I apologize. I thought it was on. Hopefully we're being cast. 1 in 8 men in the US will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. Fortunately, it is highly treatable if the disease is caught early. That's why the county offers annual preventative screenings beginning at age 50. As part of our awareness campaign, our employees didn't shave for 1 month, and the employee who had the most impressive beard gets to take home bragging rights. This year, our winner is Shane Henry, our IT analyst from IMTO. And as you can see on the screen, we have some before and after photos of Shane. And wow, that's quite a difference. We also have some before and after pictures from other employees that participated, including Bernie Ryder, Children and Youth, Charles Crothers, and Michael Spagnuolo from Domestic Relations, Armando Hartman, Jamie Rodiers, and John McChrystal, and Mark Adams, all from our IMTO department. So we want to thank all of the employees who participated and helped raise the awareness for this important cause. So thank you all. Shane, we do have, we don't have a great monetary reward, but I mean, you should be able to post this proudly. And it gives him the opportunity to.
All right, you gotta take a couple. All right, we're good.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating. You can talk to colleagues.
I'm with you.
All right. All right, next up, now we get into more serious business of the board, and that is discussion and possible approval to adopt the resolution adopting our budget for 2025. And with us, we have Carrie Finkenmeiter from our finance department. So Carrie, take it away.
So we're requesting approval of the 2025 budget. Total county revenue is $288.7 million. And this includes a real estate millage increase and library millage. The real estate millage increase would bring the millage rate to 2.625. I'm sorry. 2.625, and then the library millage to 0.25 mils. With the tax increase, that brings an additional 2.7 million in real estate tax revenue. With the library millage, that brings us 2.3 million in revenue, additional revenue. And then our total county expenses are at 330.3 million. There have been some changes since it was placed on view. The first change is that the general fund revenue increased 2.3 million, and that's due to increasing the library millage to the 0.25 mils. General fund expenses increased 2.3 million, and again, that's due to the payments we send to the library for that millage increase. And then the final change was in Fund 205, ARD expenses decreased $746. Any questions on that?
I do not. Carrie, the only question I would pose, this is a 4% increase projected for the county's budget. And the
2.6.
No, I'm sorry, the revenue that would be generated from the 4%,
2.7 million.
The 2.7 million, one of the components that I felt strongly about during the discussions of our budget process is, unfortunately, this board had to approve $30 million in bond financing that becomes fully payable in this next coming budget. And that payment is approximately $2.2 million, correct?
Yes.
So for the folks that watch and are paying attention to what we're doing here, the original projections had us using about $5 million in reserves. Once we would institute this 4% change that would allow us to cover our bond debt service, we are still projecting about $2.5 million of reserves having to be drawn. So based upon where we were at the beginning of 24 to what we're looking at for 2025, there's been significant improvement in the management of the budget. And I appreciate all the effort that you and your team and the county staff has put into this. But this doesn't mean that we're completely out of the water. We still have to mind all our expenses and look for ways to continue to save money and look for ways to bring additional revenue to the county. So did anyone have any questions of Carrie at this time as it relates to, we'll do these independently, the resolution adopting the 2025 budget? If
The
not,
budget includes both the library and.
correct. Then do we discuss them separately? Because I do have thoughts pertaining to the library increase that are different than my thoughts on the proposal for the county.
I think it's okay to talk about all of it, and then we move forward accordingly.
Okay, and piecemeal. And Carrie, you bring a great point to the table, because the one thing I've learned over the past couple of weeks is that there's a lot of confusion surrounding our role with the library. And there has been outreach, there's some political pressure on this board as it relates to the library millage increase. And some of the confusion that I've seen in the emails that we've received is that people don't seem to understand that our relationship as a board is with the library system. We do not individually fund the individual libraries. We fund the library system. We collect the tax and pass it on to the library system. There have been people saying, find room in your budget. This is not a budgeted item from our, it has to run through our budget, but it's an independent tax that is assessed to all property owners in the county. And there seemed to be some indication that we were contemplating cutting the funding to the library as well. And that's not the case. That's not been discussed. We have not discussed reducing the tax that is being allocated. So that was interesting to me, the misconception. But we have gone through a lot of meetings and we've dug up a lot of documents, and I have serious concerns as it relates to our relationship with the library system. We have a memorandum of understanding with the library system from 2015, and then we have a changed memorandum of understanding with them from 2016. At this juncture, we don't know which, and they're called MOUs, which MOU is in force. And quite frankly, the requirements of the 2015 memorandum of understanding weren't being monitored, upheld, or by the library system nor this board. We weren't paying attention to that. And I think that that's important because that MOU defines our relationship. So there were discussions with the library system about capital improvements that needed to be made. There was not a capital plan presented. There were not hard numbers to much of what the discussion came to. There was discussion of reducing hours
And through our conversations, I learned that there was a 45-hour minimum requirement for them to receive state funding, but wasn't given a frame of reference in reducing hours. I happened to notice one of the libraries open in excess of 60 hours in any given week. So is a reduction a reasonable thing? I simply don't know. Or if there were any hardships created because of the reduction. If there were tangible negative impacts, I'm not clear on that. There was a lot of discussion around wages for their staff. And while I may believe that they may need adjustment, they are currently undergoing a salary study that we haven't seen the information from yet. So I'm not comfortable with just guessing that I believe that they need adjustments. And the original discussion started at more than doubling their revenue. Now, we're talking about roughly a 50% increase to the library revenue. And again, I don't know if that's the right number. I don't know if that accomplishes what they need. I haven't seen any long-term planning from them. But I'm not certain. I can't tell you with certainty what that additional money is going for. We've been given a list of things that they believe they need, but no numbers have been directly assigned to each one of those categories. So without having those things in place, I am not supportive at this time of increasing the library tax. That's my position as it relates to the proposal. Did others want to have any discussion on that? Jean? I know you're very
I have
supportive.
been incredibly transparent that I am in support of a library tax millage rate increase. I have been the commissioner liaison to the Cumberland County Library System for 5 years. They have, in my opinion, been very clear in what they need and why they need it. But again, I've spent 5 years with them, right? Learning about what the library does, the services that they offer, how important they are to our community, how important they are to children. So I am supportive of this. I know that a majority of this board agreed to a resolution proposing an increase for the library tax millage rate, and it would take the rate to 0.250 mils. And the current rate is 0.17.
0.166, yeah.
Okay. And so this new valuation, the new assessed valuation at 0.25 mils is 0.0250 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation of taxable property. So I'm okay with moving forward with this. It adds an additional $2.3 million in revenue to the library system that they will then use for various purposes, including funding the member libraries. I have also said that I was willing to do more of an increase. It has been very clear to me that they are in need of additional funds. I am very hopeful, Commissioner Nieder, that as we move into this next year and we really dig into our relationship with the library system and we dig into this memorandum of understanding from 2015
Or 2016.
or 2016 or because there are two of them out there, and it is a bit unclear as to what our relationship is. That as we dig into this and we work with our library system and our member libraries, that there will be far more math involved. And I don't believe that there's been a tremendous amount of math involved since this initial memorandum of understanding, since the initial library tax millage was collected. So I'm hopeful for that, but I most certainly am supportive of our library system. I'm supportive of our member libraries. Could we be working this relationship in a better way? Absolutely.
And that's incumbent upon both of us, this
Absolutely.
board and that board
Yes.
as well, Jean. And I am not unsupportive of the libraries and the work that they do. And I know that people that support them are tremendously passionate about their libraries. Where my issue lies is just that for example, when this passes, I will not, if it passes, I will not know if we are going to be providing the $100,000 of conditional funding that was part of the 2016 MOU, or if we are going to be requiring the elements that was under the 2015 MOU. And under that MOU, I believe there were, it was in place for 9 years. Over that time period, there were multiple times at which we should have been evaluating an increase to their funding. I believe it was over 4 separate times based upon that. And when there was the MOU done or the increase done in 2017, it was, I guess, affected in 2016. It was indicated that it was done because of the $5 million hit they took from state funding, and that it was the expectation that it would get them through 3 years to 2019. And nothing has happened in these interims, over from the subsequent 6 years. There should have been discussions, and I've come to learn through this conversation that this board took actions that actually negatively impacted the library system. And I believe we need to revisit those and see if there's something we can do to be more helpful. I think we need to see if they're eligible for RECP funding for their capital improvements that they want to do. And Jean, the one thing that I think they need to fix, quite frankly, is their funding formula that they allocate to the libraries. They indicated it's been broken. And, that's something that I'm not sure if they're allocating it appropriately. That's something I believe they need to fix. We don't control what library gets what amount, but that's a concern to me. So all of those things being said, I mean, I can't ask taxpayers to come in, reach into their pocket to fund more for the library when I don't know that the $2.3 million, where it's going. And I know when I'm asking them for the tax increase to the county budget, exactly where it's going. So that is my expectation, and hopefully we can get there in the future. But at this juncture, I'm not comfortable supporting it without some clarity around those items. Commissioner Eichelberger, did you have anything you wanted to?
I guess I will, since we're focused on the library millage, which is item 8. But so I guess I have question and comment. So the question regarding the MOU is certainly kind of thrown us for a loop on that, but I have to ask the chief clerk and anybody else on that. So the latest memorandum of understanding is what year? 2020.
So there's, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back and start. So there's an MOU from 2015.
Right.
That MOU, we are uncertain if that MOU is still in place or not. It still appears to be an active contract. In 2016, a new MOU was issued that was given a new contract number in our management system in Lawson. There were 2 addendums to that MOU.
And those came before us.
Correct.
We had those in our possession.
Yes, they were.
Did they not
Yes.
supersede the 2015? So we would be operating under the most recent one. I'm trying to figure out.
It would appear that way, but it is impossible for us now to know what the intention was. I'll say in 2016. In 2016, a new MOU was written. It does not appear to cover every element that was in the 2015 MOU. And it really solely addressed conditional funding, essentially.
Right. Okay. I recall that.
So because of that, and the fact that it was given a new contract number, we are just not clear. The staff who's here now was not here at that time. And the staff who was here at that time no longer work for the county. And so
that contract number is generated here, not by the library.
right, it was generated within our management process of managing contracts.
I'm sorry, is that in the legal department or in the financial department or combination.
in our solicitor's office is where those contract numbers are applied. So whether that was a direction from the chief clerk at the time, or whether that was a simple oversight that there already was an active MOU that needed to be, that this new MOU in 2016 was replacing, we don't know.
And the substance, in summary, the substance of the changes over those years where the new MOUs came forward and ostensibly were approved by the Board of Commissioners.
Mhm.
So what are the substantive changes that were made over that period of time?
Okay, so
I can address that actually.
thank you, because
Stacey.
I don't have them all in
26
front of me.
The 2016 MOU dealt exclusively with the $5 million issue created by the state. It dealt exclusively focused around the provisional funding. And then this board, from there on, did not do the items under the 2015 MOU, which were, quite frankly, it was a well-written MOU. It had good triggers for conversations around when tax rates should be reviewed, the information that should be shared between the boards, that it was a well thought out item. It seems as though after 2016, the focus became exclusively on, instead of talking about the $4.4 million in tax revenue, it spoke exclusively to the $100,000
Conditional funding.
in conditional
Okay.
funding.
So they should have operated parallel, not one supersedes the other.
It certainly could have, but I think at this juncture, it's my opinion that we need to define the relationship and what's the expectation to go forward.
Yeah, okay, that helps a bit, and I guess that does shape my thinking on this. I mean, this issue of the libraries issuing a request came forward very late in this year. Later than it normally would. And it's obviously been a very inopportune time, given the rest of the budgetary issues. So in the past, we've always tried to keep library village questions in years separate from the general fund village and other factors, but that apparently became not possible this year. I'm not sure the reason for the late emergence of this, but so essentially what was told to this board was we were faced with the option of drastic reductions by the member libraries. We are in admittedly from the information we have derived from interviewing Carolyn, this is a pretty complex governance arrangement. And I don't know that we've taken that seriously enough in the past, because we've got member libraries who have a great deal of autonomy and decision-making power. We've got us only focused on the issue of how much money is going to them, and then there's a library system. And Carolyn, you have a difficult position there, predominantly doing shared services, so you realize efficiencies. But I guess there's some other wrinkles to that. So these three very different roles have never been completely explored and nailed down. It's complex. Now with all the inflationary pressure, that has made that much more pronounced need. So I agree that the comments that this does need to be looked at in great detail. So so in the discussions that we've had here on this issue recently, Carolyn was very forthcoming with as much information as she was able to give us, and there's a lot of unknowns. So I think that the fact that the libraries are facing what sound to be pretty onerous responses on the heels of the fact that for 3 years, without our knowledge, they've already been in retrenchment mode and making substantive reductions in programming, other expenditures. That speaks volumes, but it's also a point of failure that the Board of Commissioners should have been made fully aware that this was developing, and it didn't reach this point to become necessary right now. Nonetheless, in our discussion, what I offered was, could we get to a principle of agreement that we would not jeopardize the state funding? And then my thinking on this has always been, can we offer a lifeboat, what I call a lifeboat solution, an interim solution, keep you guys afloat. I'm looking at you, Carolyn, just because you're on screen. And then revisit, as Commissioner Nieder said, a detailed problem solving and due diligence process so that we can really now understand fully what needs to be in a memorandum of agreement and get that straightened out. So I continue to believe that that's the best solution. So I come to this, I'm prepared to support the lifeboat solution. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to agreement on a principle that would allow us to set what that number would be. So roughly speaking, Stacy, you and I kind of worked out. So you've got 3 years that are already kind of underwater. And if we give you a solution, it's going to be a 1 to 2 year solution. So there's 5 years. So the fact that this looks on paper to be a pretty substantial increase that's been proposed is in fact playing some catch up as well as buying you time so that we can do this process. But the board's going to have to commit to really doing this process, and that's going to require, as was stated, a great deal of collaboration, communication, interaction between all those players. That's going to include the member libraries because they are very autonomous and they make decisions that affect this whole equation. And those things have never really been, we've got some that are healthy, some that are less than healthy. And all of those are moving variables that harm us. We need to get our hands around that. So I'm prepared to support the lifeboat solution that's been put forward. And I would just point out that I think what's relevant here is that the libraries themselves, even without being pressured, do appear to have undertaken a serious review process, engaged in reducing expenditures, belt tightening, and you're 3 years into that. Am I stating that correctly, Carolyn?
Yeah.
You're
If
not,
I
sorry.
may, yeah.
Yeah.
I do believe they have, and we did do. We provided you in a listening session some of the ways that the money would be utilized to improve our libraries. None of that actually is in capital expenditures. That is a misconception. We don't use tax dollars for capital expenditures. That's only done through fundraising and capital campaigns. There are some maintenance issues that need to be addressed, and this money would assist with some of those things, but nothing like building expansions or building in particular. So,
and those are all substantial too. I guess to sum up, I'll just say that, my concern there would be that, member libraries need to take a certain amount of commitment to their community asset there. And it seems to me potentially that they're reducing their commitment under an assumption that this cost just gets passed to the county and we'll make up for it. And that's not a workable solution. So I think we're going to have maybe something more concrete. And I may be off base on that, but we'll work through that. But we needed to buy ourselves some time so that we can find what those solutions are. So, I mean, at this point, I'm supportive of what's been proposed here. But it's going to require a commitment that there's going to be frank discussion, and we got to really kind of nail this down once and for all. We're in a different place than we were. Inflation has had an extraordinary impact on the libraries. But there's a lot of questions, some of them were raised here by my colleagues, that we have to work through. So, but we need to buy ourselves time to do that. So that's where I am on this today.
And Carolyn, with all due respect, it was not me guessing that there were capital improvements, and some of the documentation that was provided, there was discussion. I'm not saying you're using tax dollars for capital improvements. I'm saying that it was provided that there were necessary maintenance and capital improvements that were going to be done. So the problem that I had all along with this is initially the request started at more than doubling the revenue. And again, there was not a good plan over a 5-year period showing what that would accomplish. I know you've spoken about being inspirational. I know we've talked about the need to adjust salaries, but again, I personally have just not seen the data to warrant that, so that I can say to taxpayers, yes, they need to increase salaries, and that costs $1.3 million. Or yes, they need to do, a combination of reinstating hours, and that's going to cost the system $500,000. I don't have those numbers, and therefore I'm not comfortable, but I will let it go at that. So I guess, Commissioner Eichelberger, did you have comments you wanted to make about the county budget at this time? I know we've had several discussions publicly about that, and Carrie is available if there are any questions.
On that issue, on item, 7, on the real estate knowledge,
6 and then 7.
6 is the collective, so 7 is the breakout for the general fund budget. I guess I don't really have anything that hasn't been said before. I remain opposed, so that for that.
I find it ironic you can acknowledge that costs have risen for the library and not for the county. But we
Well, acknowledge is the library has proactively made an effort to try to rein.
and I would say that we have very much proactively made an effort. And I certainly cannot make up for the mismanagement over a 9-month period. This is a process of turning a tanker, as I've said before, and we are getting there. But adding $30 million in bond obligations for a project that had been going on for 10 years and no other funding was sought is a challenge. And we will be making those bond payments for the next 20 years. Correct, Dana? And we need to have a revenue stream to pay for that. And unfortunately, that is at the cost of the taxpayer. It is with good work that we've gotten the budget to this narrow of deficit, with a projection of being short only $2.5 million if this 4% increase is approved. So if there's any other discussion that anyone would like to have, we can do that. Commissioner Fashi, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Do not, I am ready to move forward.
Okay, if you'd like to make a motion, please, for the first is resolution 2024-37.
So I am going to move to approve Resolution 2024-37. This is the resolution adopting the 2025 budget for the County of Cumberland.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. There's a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 No.
Okay.
Okay, so
Next up is the following resolution for the village.
So I am going to move to approve Resolution 2024-38, setting the 2025 real estate tax millage rate. So this is a tax on real property located within the County of Cumberland for 2025, and thereafter, until modified by subsequent ordinance, is levied and assessed at the rate of 2.625 mils on the assessed valuation thereof, which is 0.2625 on each $100 of assessed valuation of taxable property.
Is there a second to that motion? I will make that second. It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 You say no.
No.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and move to approve Resolution 2024-39. And this is a resolution setting the 2025 library system tax millage rate. So this is a tax on real property located within the County of Cumberland for 2025 and each year thereafter until changed by resolution is levied and assessed at the rate of 0.250 mils on the assessed valuation thereof, which is 0.0250 on each $100 of assessed valuation of taxable property for the Cumberland County Library System.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a
I
second?
will say.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
And that, I'm glad that we got that done. And here's the deal for me on this. There is inflation everywhere. If there's inflation affecting the library system, there's inflation affecting the county. And so there has to be consistency in thought, in my opinion, on how you come to these determinations. I'm kind of flabbergasted about what just happened. I'm flabbergasted that we would have a no vote on the entire budget and then split the votes on yes and no. Like I'm gonna have to sit down with Dana and figure out how the heck, like, what is the logic in that? But I'm glad that we got this done. Thank you both.
And Jean, I'm not indicating that I don't think the library hasn't had inflation.
say that.
I am just saying I haven't been given adequate information to know where this additional $2.3 million is going to be going.
And Dana, was this the first time in county history where the library tax and the budget, the county budget, have been addressed together?
Not the only.
So normally it happens in two, right? The budget is one and then the millage is the other. It is the first time the millage was split
It's the first time.
that I
I
know.
thought there was one other time, but thank you.
Say that again.
So the budget has always been separate,
Okay.
but in the past, the millage has been on the same ordinance, but now it's a resolution.
Okay, but so this is not the first time that both have been addressed at the exact same time.
Oh, at the same time, I think we have adjusted both when there's been a reassessment year. I don't know that it has happened other than that.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't have, I
Okay,
don't know.
I'm good. I'll check that out. Thanks.
Is there any other business to come before the board at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. We are adjourned.